it has in a strange way empowered some of the supervisory folks and others to actually make even more challenging decisions. And so you're seeing some really unusual decisions. But also, one of the big things that's happened in the last couple of years has been a major movement of senior personnel who used to adjudicate your complex cases from the regular adjudications group to the fraud detection and national security group. Now you'd ask, why would these people move? Well, there's only one simple reason. They had been there for many years in a career position, and they were given a higher grade of salary if they moved to those fraud detection, national security positions. So there was this mass exodus of 600 key experienced adjudicators from all over USCIS who just wholesale moved over. And as a result, you've had a whole lot of very young, inexperienced officers who are now manning many of these very critical lines. And the point I'm trying to make is that what you need to do when you get an RFE, you should not immediately respond. You should immediately, if you have an objection to it, you should immediately fire off an objection to the USCIS folks, and hopefully within 5 or 10 days, they will respond back to you with an amended RFE. Remember, you don't want to wait till the deadline, because you must respond if they haven't responded to you. But it's extremely important that that be done, and USCIS is actually sending back revised RFEs. So it's extremely important that you do that. I'm seeing that my time has run out, so I had a lot more to say, but we will do that next year. Let me turn it over to Abigail. Maybe if you could just give us a little perspective on the Obama administration and the position it's taking on immigration, and in particular on the business-related immigration.
The short answer is that the Obama administration acknowledges that the immigration system in the United States is effectively broken and needs fixing. That's the big broad stroke picture. Then, to get a little into what Sophia started talking about this morning, we get into the political realities of how likely it is that we'd have comprehensive immigration reform, or CIR, in the near future. We have a government that has legislation through Congress. It has directives through the administration. But to have comprehensive immigration reform, you're going to need to have a compromise on both. In this room, it sometimes might be easy to forget that H's and L's and basically visas that facilitate movement for the purpose of keeping our economies chugging along are but just one slice of the immigration pie. There are many constituencies with interests in CIR. Some of the largest are those involved with family reunification and with rationalizing the legal status of millions of people currently in the United States undocumented. So whenever CIR is discussed, business facilitation visas is going to be but one, not small, but one topic discussed. And you need to keep in mind that everything is going to be in play. Cynthia talked about how we have to protect ourselves from ourselves on immigration reform, and making sure that any kind of reform does still protect the mutual interests of economic development. And for those of, I know many of you have interest with lobbying concerns, that's where you're going to have the most important role to play, is working with lobbyists to make sure that, and this is just me talking, this isn't, wither ghosts, immigration and Obama administration, and please don't walk out of here saying that the consul said that it's going to get worse. But this is just me as an observer of other priorities, let's look at healthcare, where you have a number of people starting with advantages, saying it's broken, but thinking it's broken in different ways. You have some who think it's too broken now because it's too restrictive. You have some who say it's broken now because it's too liberal. So do make sure that you have your voice heard so that the end result is not something that you think is even worse than what we have now. Do you want to comment on that as well, Cynthia?
Cynthia, do you think that maybe when comprehensive immigration reform comes, will the senior Senators Schumer and Grassley actually use the employment L1s and H1s as a negotiating tool whereby they will put in even further restrictions, as we've seen in the last 2 years when CIR was introduced, and prevent further, or create even further restrictions on H&Ls as a compromise to allowing millions of family-based immigrants to become immigrants?
Those are two really good questions. I have to say Abigail did an amazing job of saying, in a very careful way, maybe something I can say a little more directly. so the consul, I don't think that anything good is going to happen for a little while. And to answer your question, for the people in this room, you better hope we don't have comprehensive immigration reform for the next little while. Because if we do, right now with the economic climate, it's going to do nothing but what Prakash just said. You're going to end up with worse immigration rules because they're going to bundle everything together. They're not going to distinguish and take in the nuances of immigration. I think you said it so well, the way we term immigration. It's a broad concept, and that's what the U.S. does. That right now, immigration is a hotbed word, and I think that if any immigration reform happened, it would not be positive. We have to wait for an economic recovery to have that. What Prakash just told you may be one of the most important things you hear over the next 2 years, though. I know it sounds like a little, somebody moved here and somebody resigned. Major things happening within the immigration service. CIS is in a real state, and people that have been trying to have a reasonable business-oriented approach are not succeeding. And we need to be very clear. And it's a very big concern for people in this room. What might happen, I don't mean to be the one on the panel to be the negative, but we have to really be careful about what might happen.
How about Josh?
If you could basically focus more on what is that companies need to do? Probably the audience here would like to know. There's a lot of insights from INSZoom and also from Prakash with the changes that are happening and with the way the compliance is not a destination. That's something that we're going to keep doing it. So if you could basically share the real experience and observations, what is that they need to do to stay compliant in this environment?
So I think what's emerging very clearly is that immigration means very different things to different people. For the large majority in this room, it perhaps means something, it's a very small proportion of the much larger immigration canvas, which is there for the US to handle. I think our role as people in the industry is not just to have the visas or the work permits for our employees who travel, but I just can't stop repeating myself saying that we are really compliance managers, and the focus really in the new world order is going to be the compliance and how we educate our employees, our business leaders on how this whole immigration,